We are back with another YouTube video slash live stream because I am live streaming this at the moment, but it's gonna be a YouTube video, so hey, you already know. Uh, Today though we are live streaming or reacting to the 1950s UFO mystery that defies explanation. I messed that up. But either way, we're gonna be watching another alien YouTube video because I enjoy the alien videos a lot. Go sit down, don't you go messing with the door. I had to close the door this time because I have family over, so I don't want the family noise to echo through the hallway and come and hit my room. If you don't think it works like that, it really does, and it's very loud. Um, like if I let my door open, I can hear what one of my family members are doing on their phone because they don't turn down the volume and it echo all the way through over here. And if I can hear it, I'm pretty sure you can probably hear it. So either way, we're back for another YouTube video. Hopefully, y'all enjoy. It's gonna be another react. I'm just kind of doing reacts right now. I was gonna do a playthrough or a gameplay of Elden Ring, but I kind of didn't feel like going through the Elden Ring right now because I just been like hours doing it. And since I'm gonna be watching YouTube videos anyways, I mean I might as well react to them, right? But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it before I talk for 5-10 minutes or whatever.
Our secrets they shouldn't, and the nightmares and attacks that begin to stem from it would lead to horrific emotional and physical consequences at the hands of them.
Gotta put on my pants.
In 1941, during the height of World War II, a man named John Stewart from Hamilton, New Zealand had a rather bizarre sighting. During Operation Crusader, John witnessed a strange glowing orange ball in the sky that defied explanation.
He's kind of quiet.
Alone stuck with him for years to come. In addition to it, there wasn't anywhere he could go for answers because remember, this was the early 1940s. But as the years progressed into the late 40s and early 50s,
I feel like there'd be a lot of people that would believe you more back then than they do now.
Reporting strange things in the sky that they too couldn't explain. Feeling vindicated, he knew that he had to get to the bottom of it no matter the cost. In 1948, his obsession turned to him spending hours going through newspapers, looking for any reports of something in the sky. Anything he could find. He would go to the library and check out any book he could find on that subject. He would get books from all over the world, something that at this time was a lot harder to do. Well, one thing led to another, and John soon found himself involved with the more fringe groups of society at the time. The most
fringe means like small, right?
Civilian
or like outside type of groups.
Sets the chain of events for the entirety of this story. In 1952, sometime around 11:30 in the evening,
I feel like back then you probably get a lot more reports about it because they didn't have technology to document it like they do now.
His life.
But now you can kind of call a lot of people on BS because we have a lot of recordings or like technology to record and stuff like that.
Confused and off-put by this, he simply responds yes, and then the voice asks him an extremely bizarre question. It asks him, "Are you the John Stewart who is interested in what Earthmen call flying saucers?" What? Who talks like that? He's thinking, who on earth is this? And so he's like, yeah, what can I do?
I don't think I would have been too creeped out by that. I would have been like, oh, it's just somebody that thinks that they're not from this planet.
To aggressive and issues him
like I refer to people as humans a lot. It's like humans are dumb or humans do this and that.
This pisses John
off. It's not because I'm an alien, it's just because that's what you are, human. I'm a human, you're a human, we're all humans.
So it's like, hey, listen pal, who the hell are you talking to?
I'm going specifically by
species. And this is where things continue to get weirder and weirder. The voice responds back and tells him something that sounds like it's straight out of a science fiction film. He hears whoever is on the other line tell their name, but it sounds like gibberish, a language he's never heard before.
Because it probably is gibberish.
He couldn't pronounce even if he wanted to. However, the
could he spell it?
That it added from another planet at the end of the sentence. Okay. This is clearly a prank, and not a funny one. John, now obviously...
I don't know if I would
just
necessarily
tells
say, oh yeah, this is
mysterious
a prank. I would probably
prankster to
say
go
it's
to
a
hell and
delusional
goes to hang
person.
up on them. But before that happens, what followed was a series of sinister warnings. It told him that if he and those around him were to continue to poke their noses where it didn't belong, that harm would come to them. Now, humorously,
I would definitely think it's the government or something like that, just doing it to talk or like discourage me.
Beware, Earthman. John was just about to hang up on this prankster when they issued out their last 4 words. You have been warned. The line went dead. John was...
I've heard many people would tell me that and they didn't do nothing.
Various and threatening. It seemed a little out of place just to be a simple prankster, you know? In fact, right before this happened, he had who he thought was a prankster ring his doorbell, and when he went to answer it, there was no one outside. But as all these start taking place, it's hard not to draw connections.
Ding dong
Fast
ditch.
forward to April 1953.
You just press the doorbell and you take off.
With a newly formed UFO group,
Or you can just step to the side and,
I mean, I would hope, Society, otherwise known as
some people
CIS.
open the door, some don't.
While in this group, he met a beautiful young woman, Doreen Wilkinson, and these 2 young lovers hit it off like you can't imagine. They would soon spend all their time together, bonding over their shared interest in UFOs and strange, unidentified phenomena. However, as romantic as this sounds, John was actually married. And even years later, John swore up and down
So she's a homewrecker.
Just 2 researchers united by a common goal: to uncover the mystery behind flying saucers. Sure, John. Interestingly, when John and
it could be, but
Doreen went on to form a new group,
I don't know.
the Flying Saucer Investigators. Wow, John, real original. Now, while John was continuously adamant that he and Doreen were nothing more than friends, she continued to make unwanted advances towards him during this time.
Yeah, she probably is just a
it's not
homewrecker
what you
just
think.
making up
She had
stuff
such
for
an
him.
abrupt personality change that he was convinced she had been overtaken by otherworldly forces, or, possession, to put it bluntly. Her behavior began to become increasingly strange, and in fact, during one of their outings, as she was saying,
Pretty sure she was just trying to take you from your wife,
to him
boy.
as if she was crying for help. In fact, John would write this about the experience.
I walked to the gate with her, and it seemed that once again, Doreen was the same innocent young person she had been before her strange conversation of that evening. I opened the gate, told her to sleep well. She paused momentarily, and I stood there, just a bit embarrassed by the silence. Suddenly, she threw her arms around my waist, pressed her head to my shoulder, and whispered, "Help me, Johnny, help me!" Before I could ask her what was wrong, she had released me and was running down the walkway.
As weird as this is, it wasn't just Doreen who seemed possessed. There were often instances where it appeared that odd behavior was coming from John. In fact, John detailed how he would have entire conversations
Manipulation.
that he would have no memory of. He would just come
space down,
finish, only to be confused and have to ask Doreen what had happened. Apparently, Doreen informed him that he would ramble on about strange UFO theories in an eerie, strange, cold, and monotonous voice that wasn't his
Yeah,
own.
both were interested in it, so you probably just would go off on a
In
rant,
fact,
and then
during one
she was like,
conversation that had taken place at John's home, Doreen had stopped mid-sentence and looked over John's shoulder. The look on her face was pure terror, and John would say this.
I turned and saw a stranger standing almost behind me, a soft smile on his rather effeminate face. I sprang to my feet, seeing that Doreen was
what does that
sitting
even
quite
mean?
still.
That he had
I
a
asked the
smooth
man
face?
who he was and how he got into my home. A soft smile was his reply, and at last he told us he was a spaceman, and had called to add his words
still
to
broken?
the warning I had received some months before. I put his age at about 30 years. He was tall and slimly built, but I was not fooled with this slim appearance.
I don't get why people would
realizing that
ask
there
them,
were
well, how did you get into the
well-developed
house?
muscles beneath the black
You
suit
expect him to be like,
he was
oh
tanned
yeah,
to
there's a
deep
window that you
tan
have
colour,
downstairs
and his
that's
hair was
busted.
long, being very
I just
fair.
kind of,
His eyes were a
like the
soft
lock's
blue
busted,
and
so I
held
just
a
lifted it
friendly
up and I got
expression.
into there.
The stranger
Like, no
again
dude, they're not
told us
gonna
to
let you
leave
know
well
how they
alone
got in just
and
so
to
that
cease
they
our
can get in
investigations.
again next
His
time.
eyes moved to Doreen, and he pointed out that she would be in danger if we persisted. With this warning still in our ears, the stranger vanished from view.
Wait a minute.
You didn't try attacking it?
You're telling me that they're now being visited by the Men in Black? this is getting interesting. And just
I don't
you
know if
wait,
I would say
because
that that's
things
the Men
are
in
about to
Black.
get pretty
I don't.
crazy. We're gonna
I
fast
don't think
forward to
I've seen
June
any
1954,
reports saying that Men in Black
and John
teleport
was
into your
driving
house and
home
teleport
one night,
out of your
and he
house
looks
in
out his
front of your
windshield
eyes.
and
It's
spots
usually walking
something
in
off
or
in the
walking out or
distance.
knocking
And
on
as you
your door
guys
or
can
doing stuff
imagine,
like
it's
that.
exactly what it sounds like. Jonathan was witnessing a flying saucer just outside his home. This thing drew so near to him and it actually came close to 100 feet from the ground before it abruptly vanished. Completely overcome with emotion and shock beyond belief, he would go on to share his encounter with Doreen, and this is where part of the conversation began to turn. You see, the conversation evolved from John's sighting into the warnings that they had continuously received. Most disturbingly of all, Doreen was in danger. Doreen was also very adamant and
Her
passionate
name
about
sounds like
UFOs, and
deranged.
so no matter how much John begged and pleaded, she wasn't ready to give up her research. John knew that if she didn't stop, things would only end badly for Doreen. Suddenly, it happened. In mid-conversation, Doreen suddenly sat up with her eyes completely wide and whispered to John in a panicked voice, "What was that?
What
There was something in the room with them."
Probably the same thing that came
As
the last time.
disturbing as this was, they began to hear heavy breathing.
I feel like John was having an affair with her, and he's gonna make her disappear and claim it's aliens.
Panic-stricken, and John even noted to Doreen that it sounded like someone had a serious case of asthma. However, the
I have
breathing
asthma.
only
That's not
lasted
really how you
moments,
sound.
and then
You wheeze more than
both of
anything.
them now were completely
If you're making,
shaken up, and so John lit a cigarette to try and calm his nerves.
you don't have. That's not the sound of
1950s,
asthma.
Literally everyone.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of breath.
Start your day
If
with
that's
Nature Me.
like, you're just getting a lot of oxygen at that point, which makes no sense for asthma. Asthma's like
Need
usually
inspiration? Shop Kroger. For over 30,000 mouth-watering choices.
that.
Plus, savings like digital
Because
coupons
I mean,
for
you
over
can do that without
$6
like. At least, because I have asthma, and I can do that without activating my asthma. It doesn't feel good, but you can do it.
And he's taking
I'm pretty sure you didn't even hear it because, I mean, it's a low amount of air that you have in your lungs. That's why you make that sound, not because you have too much air in your. I mean, I don't know. It's just for somebody that has had asthma for a very, very, very long time, more than a decade. Never have I.
Until Friday. The two get together again.
No,
for
that's
another
too heavy of a breath for
romantic
asthma.
rendezvous. I mean, to discuss UFOs, you know. And
That's a lot of
so at
air
some
you're
point during their
dishing out.
discussions, Doreen realizes that they've smoked through all of their cigarettes.
Which it could just be how
and
he's
tells John,
explaining it,
"Hey,
but
I gotta
I
head
don't know.
down to the corner store to pick up some more cigarettes. I'll be back quickly." And off she goes. No big, right? Well, while she's gone, John is just sitting there, lost in thought about all the crap they've been going through recently. The UFO he saw, the strange experiences they've been having, the possession episodes, and you know how it is when you get lost in thought after a while. You simply lose track of time. At some point, he realizes Doreen's been gone for quite some time. Pretty sure this isn't normal. Slam! The front door opens, and it's Doreen who stumbles in. John can immediately tell
Yeah,
there's
that's
something
suspicious.
very, very wrong. She's in complete hysterics, crying her eyes out. "There's something out there!" And she's pointing. John's freaked out by this, and in his own words, wrote this.
Quickly releasing her, I hurried outside, stopping on the top step as a terrible stench struck me. I almost fainted in terror.
A dead
It
body?
was like burnt plastic and sulfur.
Oh,
I
never mind.
stood there for a moment and then walked down to the front gate, neither seeing nor hearing anything. I retraced my steps, seeing Doreen was on the upper step, watching me. I searched the rear of the grounds.
When people say they
finding
retrace their
nothing.
stuff, I
Just
imagine
started
them
to
walking
return
like
to the door
backwards in the
when I
exact
heard
same
distinct
way that they
sounds
did
behind me.
forward.
I stopped and shone my flashlight. There was nothing there. I walked on. The sounds followed. I stopped, and the sound stopped. I moved. It moved. Again I stopped, was amazed and startled when it kept on. The peculiar shuffling, scraping sound went past me, and I felt something solid brush against my shoulder. This was the first indication I'd had that they were as solid as I.
It seems as if John and Doreen had made physical contact together and with some invisible forces of some kind. Now he can hear this thing moving in the direction of the front gate, so quickly thinking, he moves to the front door and joins
Y'all
Doreen
behave.
there. Now she's frantic and tells him she heard the same thing outside when she went to the store. And so he pulls her inside. He's shaken up.
My nephew's running around outside
So,
in the
in
living
typical
room and
50s
it's freaking
fashion,
out my
he goes
dogs.
in, pours the two of them a drink, to try and calm their nerves. And he's contemplating what the next steps are. Should they just separate at this point? But whatever is outside is still there, and he doesn't want it to harm Doreen. John has a horrifying realization. Whatever this thing is, it can come and go as it pleases. It was probably the same thing breathing in the room the other night. It's capable
Probably.
of going through walls and locked doors. They're dealing with something otherworldly here. What if this thing is...
What if people with
able to get to
asthma
Doreen
are
while they're
aliens?
separated? He
And
won't be
that's
able
why
to
we
save
can't
her.
breathe on
Realizing
planet
that
Earth
she'll be
all that
safer
well is
if
because we're
she
not
stays
from
with
Earth, we're
John.
from a different
The two of them quickly run to the rear
universe
of the
or a
house
different
and step
planet
outside.
where the air is a lot
Immediately,
easier to
they
breathe in.
realize just how dark it
And
is.
since
Things are
we
too
got traded
quiet and
out at some
creepy.
point in our
And
lives,
so the two of them finally get their
they
way
diagnosed us with asthma, but in
And they
reality
both
it's not
stop in
asthma,
their
it's just they
tracks.
were not from the planet.
Folks,
Damn
I
it.
could tell you in my own words.
What? Oh. Thank you. Come on. Got a milkshake, man.
What happened next, but I think John does a pretty good job at describing the events next.
We stared at the evil thing that faced us about 27 feet across the lawn. It was loathsome, hideous, evil, disgusting, horrifying. It was about 8 feet in height.
Since I'm lactose intolerant too, I
Staring in
slowly,
complete
very,
horror at
very
the
slowly
monster
drink
in the
those drinks.
exceptionally bright moonlight.
Like
I
that
felt
might
the
last
desire
me
to
all
take
week.
Doreen and run as fast as possible
Or
from
like
her.
all
But I
weekend.
discovered I had no willpower to move a finger. I was helpless. The monster's head was large.
That
and
picture's
bulbous. No
creepy.
neck. A huge and ungainly body supported on ridiculously short legs. It had webbed feet. The arms were thin and not unlike stalks
Like
of
a
bamboo.
platypus.
It had no hands, the long fingers jutting from the arms like stalks. Its
Not like a
eyes were about
platypus.
4 inches across, red in color. There was no nose, just 2 holes, and the mouth
Is it-
was
is this
simply a
supposed to be that
straight
image?
slash
If it's that
across
image, I would've lit it on
its
fire.
lecherous face. The hole was a green lime in color, and it was possible to see red veins running through its ungainly form. The monster was definitely male.
Now, whatever this thing was appeared far more interested in Doreen than John. It began moving, reaching out its arm toward Doreen, and it had gotten so close that it could practically touch her face. And even worse, the
I would've
closer it
freaked out,
gets,
so.
it's almost as if it gains control over Doreen and can keep her rooted to the very spot where she stands. John's now on
Mind
the verge
control.
of tears because he doesn't know what else to do at this point. They're completely frozen in place. And just as this thing gets within inches of her face, it suddenly stops and begins slowly retreating back in the direction it came from. Before it goes out of sight, it dissolves in front of them like shadows do. John and Doreen come back to and use every bit of willpower in them to flee back inside. They're both completely frantic, and so they just start chain smoking, and they're drinking, doing anything they can to try and calm their frayed nerves.
Nah, bro, see, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like he was having an affair, and that they probably created this lie to make up
At this point,
like a
John
story for
realizes he must
what
escort her
happened.
back to her
Sit
house
down.
because sticking around with him isn't an option anymore. Fortunately, he's able to drop Doreen off with no issues, and the two say their goodbyes. But as you can imagine, neither of them are really.
I feel like they were having an affair and they just lied about it and they got real drunk and intoxicated and they're like, oh, well, we gotta come up with a story so that we don't go
sleeping much either.
get in trouble or whatever with
Within a day or so, of
John's
returning
wife.
home and telling his family about what happened, this neighbor girl decides to drop in and show John what she's been sketching. And we're not talking about just one sketch, we're talking about several sketches here. This girl has been drawing odd things in John's backyard. And as John looks at these sketches, the guy can hardly believe his eyes. What he's looking at, the thing that this girl sketched repeatedly, is the exact and accurate representation of the thing he and Doreen had seen the night before. I can't even imagine the amount of terror that overcame him at that moment. I mean,
You know, I probably would have been
John,
freaked out too
what
if I
do you
seen
even
somebody
do with
draw
this? How do you
something
begin to
exactly of
process
what I
this
saw
emotion?
the other day
I mean, it's not
whenever
like
I
you can
haven't
tell
told her
anybody.
anything
When
about it.
you call police, you're pretty much isolated from any real help.
No, you
And
load
things
up
did not look
with
good
some
for John and
weapons
Doreen
and
at this point.
you get ready
Also
for
around
whatever
this
might
time,
come
well,
or not
after
come.
John saw the sketches, John had visited Doreen on a separate occasion to, again, try and plead with her to stop investigating UFOs.
Don't
This
think it was
has to be
to
the cause
plead
why
with her
all
to
this is
stop.
happening, and it's
Pretty sure it
causing
was
this thing
another
to
night.
stop them. He's frightened that the worst is yet
Nightly
to come. Now,
moment
Doreen,
for
being
them.
stubborn and still, after all they've gone through at this point, still refuses to back down and quit her
No,
passion.
dude,
What else is there for John to do?
why would you
Well,
back down if
days
you have this
continue
much
to
evidence
pass,
going
and
with
as
you?
guys can guess, it was
And
only
if you
a
have
matter
all
of
this
time
stuff
before
going
the
on, why
worst was
wouldn't
going to
you
happen.
come
In
prepared
the
with
process of
some
getting
way
ready
to
for
document it
Halloween,
other than word of
Doreen
mouth?
began to notice this strange smell that had
Writing it
mysteriously
down.
filled up her entire bedroom. She was very perplexed by this because, as far as she could tell, there was no real discernible source of the odor. She just shrugged her shoulders and just did her best to ignore it and took her usual bath, followed by a cigarette. Now,
I would have
what happens
assumed
next
something died
is
underneath the
utterly
ground,
terrifying.
like
In
underneath
fact,
the house.
Doreen herself wrote about it and said this.
Suddenly I had the impression that I was not alone, that unseen eyes were studying me. This impression was so strong that I searched the room, finding nothing. I returned to sit on the bed and to go over in my mind some of the research John and I
Probably
were
not
doing.
alone.
The impression of unseen eyes persisted, but I forced myself to ignore it. I crushed my cigarette out and turned to pick up my pajamas, freezing as someone touched my shoulder.
Oh,
I
hell
jerked
no.
upright, my eyes closed in fear. I found that I was unable to move. I gradually mustered the willpower to force my eyes open to see my attacker. I almost fainted away. I could see nobody in the room. Whatever or whoever it was invisible. Hours seemed to pass.
Sure it wasn't a
In which
demon?
time I seemed
I would
to
have believed a
overcome
demon more
the
so with how you
details.
explained the story than I would have
The horror
of
was gone.
aliens.
The attack ceased as suddenly as it had begun. I dragged myself to a sitting position and stared at my body, shuddering as I saw the fine scratches I was covered with.
Yeah, it sounds more like a
The
possession, like
sounds of back to school time.
demons, than it does an actual alien. I think they got confused between their alien and demon story. Because it sounds more demonic than it does
This was the same
alien-wise.
being or entity that John and Doreen saw, only what I assume was days before all of this. I don't think there are specific times given between when they saw the entity outside at night to this experience, but it could have been too long. For 2.5 hours, Doreen was assaulted and attacked by this unknown assailant. Now, it's unclear if she was overcome with some strange trance or what, but wouldn't you try and exit the house or run out
Yeah.
or do something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say for sure because there's not a lot of detail on these events. And as you can imagine, John was absolutely shaken by what had happened.
I mean,
to
it is the
Doreen.
1950s, so
What
there's
eventually
probably
made
no
the
real good way to
UFO
document it other
altogether.
than word of
According
mouth.
to John, his wife finally had had enough of this and told him it needed to be done. Or
I
was
would
it
have
his
too.
and Doreen's relationship she was objecting to? Well, we will never know for sure. But folks, the story doesn't end there. No. John saw this thing one final time. Sometime after Doreen's horrific attack, the neighbor girl was over talking with John in the evening about the case of the creature this girl had sketched. And after conversation, the girl eventually left, which meant that John was all alone. Lost in thought and emotion, he sat up late at night, unable to sleep.
Yeah, your
just
girl probably
watching
got
the night
annoyed
sky,
of you
probably
sleeping
smoking,
with
having a
another
drink.
woman and then making up
It
lies
comes to
about
around
it.
1:30 in the
And then
morning,
you started talking to the
and
neighbor,
when he was just getting tired enough,
like your
he
female
convinced
neighbor
himself
about
that,
it, and
you know what,
started
it's
going
time to
over
change
there and having
He gets
conversations
up,
with her
gets
about
ready
it.
to turn the light off in
So
his
she
study,
probably got
and
upset.
he suddenly stops.
And now you're all
he's
alone.
frozen in place
And
because there's
you're making
something
up lies
only 5
to
feet
cover
away
for
from
it.
him. He looks up and realizes it's exactly what we all think it is. The thing that's been tormenting him and
A
Doreen
demon.
is here now. However, it didn't attack him like it did Doreen. Instead, It spoke to him telepathically.
I wouldn't even necessarily say
Here's
that.
what
That's
John
well, yeah, I
Crane
guess
said.
it would be
Your
a
friend
tad.
knew
Probably,
too
I
much
don't know.
and had to be silenced. We sent one of us to her as a warning. We weren't ready to allow it to complete its task at that time. 13 of us were present, only 3 were actually involved. We scratched her because it was something we couldn't avoid, and her bruises are there to remind her of us.
Couldn't avoid.
You have been warned. Take heed. Should you fail, there will be others to suffer. You have told another of your research. Tell her no more, or we will have our revenge upon her. You understand? She too will suffer if you are foolish. If you persist, you will soon see what we can do.
I don't know why, they're not related at all, but I'm getting Night Flyer vibes from this. This right here
I don't
is,
know what that
according to
is.
John, why he stopped pursuing UFOs altogether. And here's what's interesting though. There's a contradiction. Shocker, I know. Author and researcher Jerome Clark made an audio recording back in 1962 that painted a different picture. Jerome wrote this.
In this one, John suffers an attack of amnesia after Doreen's departure and wanders the streets in a dazed state, finally to be rescued by another woman. He lives with her for a time before returning home, where in September 1955...
See, I think he's just causing
he receives a
affairs,
telegram
bro.
from Doreen.
And he's just
He
trying to
asks
cover
him
it
to
up.
come see her at a private nursing home, where she has given birth to an out-of-wedlock baby boy. The two have a tense exchange in which Doreen
Affair.
first describes the otherworldly attack to nerves.
That's basically what
Then
out of
says
wedlock
John
means, is
cannot
that he
protect
slept with
her
another
from
woman
it.
and
John
she got
storms
pregnant.
out, and they do not see each other again.
Jerome, who also had no idea how
See,
to
he was just
interpret
causing
John's story,
affair,
wrote about
causing
it
an affair, and
extensively in the
he had to
third
lie about it.
edition of his book titled Unexplained, and he said this.
The reader puts down UFO warning.
He was probably
harboring
drunk.
The irritating
That's what he means,
suspicion
dazed.
that the author is sincere. Why would Stewart, if a hoaxer, have put himself at risk of legal retribution from an irate Wilkinson? Would she not have taken outraged exception to being inserted into a sex-drenched fantasy novel that worse pretended to be true? The reader mulls over these questions without ever quite abandoning the certainty that the events recounted could not have happened.
So I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Was Jon Stewart's book nothing more than a salacious tale of intergalactic love and possession? Or was this just a cleverly written cover story for his own character defects and extramarital affair?
Yeah,
Unfortunately, folks, the guy is either really old or
it sounds like he had an affair, and he made up this whole story to try to cover for it so that he doesn't seem like he's a bad person. But in reality, he is a bad person. He just tried to lie about it, and somebody else caught him out on his BS and was there like, no, he was dazed and bewildered or whatever he said, walking down the street. Which, I mean, I've seen a lot of drunk people do that. I've been intoxicated before and just straight walk down the street just yelling and talking about nonsense. And I wasn't possessed by no damn alien. I feel like I would know. Or maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. But I do know that I have done that, being drunk and walking down, and me and my homeboys would be doing it too. My friends would just, there's been times to where I've literally seen my friends walking in the middle of the street, just talking to themselves, talking about nonsense, and I pulled over to pick them up and then take them home. Like, it's just there, like, dude, it sounds like he got drunk, he had an affair, other chick kind of got upset that, like, not his wife, but his other chick got upset that he was still going back to his wife, and she wasn't picking him, and so she stopped talking to him, and then his wife told him, hey, you need to cut all this out. He didn't want to stop. She got upset, so whenever he did end up cutting it off, she kind of like let it go by a little bit, and then he started sleeping with the neighbor, I guess, because the neighbor started drawing pictures. I don't know. And so he started going over there, having conversations and meetings and all that stuff with her. In reality, he's over there sleeping with her too, and that's probably what he meant by, or that other dude meant by, well, he just moved in with the girl and stayed with her for a little bit before he went back to his wife or whatever. But I think that was for the first girl, not the second girl. And the second girl was just him sleeping with his neighbor, and his wife caught on to that and was like, no, I've had enough, and then left him, and now he's all alone, and he's depressed and he's like, oh well, my wife's going around saying that I'm cheating, and so I have to make up a lie so that I don't get looked at as a bad person or whatever. That's what it sounds like to me. And if you're a cheater, you're most likely a liar. And a lot of his story just did not have any evidence or anything that would make sense. So I said it kind of seemed like more demonic possession than it did alien type of stuff. So it didn't make sense. And his wife probably wouldn't have believed, oh well, I got possessed by the devil and that's what made me sleep with another girl. I doubt that. But him saying, oh well, the other woman got possessed and I got possessed by an alien, and since not much was too much known back then about aliens, he thought it was gonna work, but it didn't, and his wife left him, and so now he just made a lie about it. But I don't know. The dude did a pretty good video explanation of everything. I did like his video. I'll probably check out more of his videos later on my own time. But just watching this video, I'm just like, it just sounded like a dude had an affair and he just tried to lie about it, and he got caught up in his lie because another dude saw him acting this way and moving in with this girl and being with this girl for however much months he was with her, and then his wife didn't believe him or anything. So it's just I don't know, dude. It just seemed like it was a lot of like BS to cover for an affair. But either way, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video. I gotta check my Fallout Shelter thing, but not only that, I'm gonna have to go pull up the next video and do all that, get it ready. Give me about 5 minutes, and I'll be back. Thank you for watching though for the time being. I'll see you in 5 minutes, I guess.